Alongside me, Jarrod, Kimber, to talk about the increasingly likely possibility that Test cricket could be split into two divisions. It's been talked about for a long time, Jarrod. I was aware of the conversation first taking place about 12 years ago, just looking back at some of the articles that I wrote. And it's been deferred and deferred. There needed to be a majority decision, didn't there, amongst ICC Test playing nations, and that was never going to happen. There was too much vested interest in those countries that might be relegated or starting off in Division 2. Obviously India, Australia and England were reluctant to accept the possibility, however unlikely, that they would be relegated if there was promotion and relegation, and so a consensus was never ever reached and never will be. Nobody's going to vote to be in Division 2, are they? But I think it looks like, I think there was, you and I have both been told by delegates who were at the recent ICC conference in Singapore, that a consensus, well, not a majority, but a consensus amongst the most powerful was reached.
Yeah, it's funny that you say England, India and Australia. They weren't the three countries that were against Division 2 back, what was it, when the World Test Championship started?
No, they were against promotion and relegation, though, weren't they?
They were, but they weren't the swinging votes. The swinging votes were West Indies, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, because they didn't want to go to Division 2. So I wouldn't say that India and Australia weren't too worried about it, was my memory at the time. This was, what, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, whenever it was. I don't think they thought it was a better idea, but they weren't massively pushing for it, a little bit like the Olympics. England were a little bit more against it, but yeah, it was really the fact that the other three nations didn't want to do it. And so we ended up being held hostage by the fact that West Indies, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, instead of, I don't know, just throwing out a wild thing here, fixing their cricket, thought that the best option was just to stay in Division 1 forever. And it's a silly system. It was always a silly system. I still think 6 teams is not enough. I think it should be 7 teams. It should be 7 teams in Division 1, 7 teams in Division 2 and 7 teams in Division 3, and then everyone else plays regionals, and if you're good enough you can make your way into Division 3. But we're not quite there yet, and I think that's one of the issues. Is realistically we should be making probably 2 extra test nations to get to 14 and then do it that way.
Who are those 2? I've got a million questions, but let's deal with that one.
I would think that the Dutch have probably done enough to get test status by now, wouldn't you say?
Well, they don't really have a first-class structure, do they? They have club cricket.
They have very good club cricket, though. I mean, that's part of the reason they might not get it. You're right. Scotland is the other one who also has very good a system there. You've got America and Namibia as well. So there's a couple of different places that you could go if you wanted to. But as I said, in my system, you take away test status forever, because test status is what's ruined the game of test cricket for me. And I would not worry about ever having test status, and I would work out who's in each division, and then you can go from there. Then if you don't have first class status at home and you're not very good at it, well, another associate team will come up past you, or another small team will come up past you.
Let's talk about some of the financial ramifications. By the way, I just want to say, premise this, it's too late to premise it now, but Test cricket has been in crisis, I'm aware, since 1911. That's the first time that that people were openly expressing in the media concern about the format, and it's gone in peaks and troughs and highs and lows, and ever since, you know, I remember Test cricket being in a massive existential crisis in the 1980s, before Botham's Ashes, when scoring rates were, you know, 2 runs and over, and
the 1950s was another one.
Yeah, and games ending in draws, and you know.
I mean, if you want to go back, you said 1911. I mean, they were talking about that Test cricket went too long in the 1880s when it first started. So we've always been there.
Yeah, I mean, times have changed, and the landscape has changed quite fundamentally. And it's now all about money, you know, and it was about money 120 years ago, but it was more about you know, passing a hat round amongst the crowd and people tossing in a few coins, and they made money from gates. That's how it worked, and that obviously is now fundamentally different, and it's made from television revenue. But I mean, it just seems to me that you tell me what you think of this. Create a Division 2, and I think it's an abattoir. I don't think anybody gets out of Division 2. I don't think anybody becomes competitive. This conversation was again triggered by the West Indies being dismissed for 27 in a day-night Test match at Sabina Park in Jamaica, and again, you know, every time the West Indies collapse for nothing or get thrashed, then people say, well, you know, do they deserve Test status? But as people said to me, well, if the West Indies are in Division 2 and England obviously a permanent member of Division 1, immune from promotion relegation, does that mean England don't tour the Caribbean anymore? Or do they just go on drinking tours, just play white ball cricket?
I mean, it's possible, but you can't have 12 Test playing nations, right? There's actually too many people. There's too many teams. So it's also unsustainable as it is now, right? Like, Ireland basically don't play Test matches. Afghanistan basically don't play Test matches. So we need to do something to ensure that there is actually Test cricket going to be played. Otherwise, what are we actually protecting, right? So yes, it is a possibility that England will never play another Test series against the West Indies. It's also a possibility that this is what the West Indies need, right? I mean, what is actually shaping West Indies cricket at the moment? Is there a push within the governments that are there to actually try and make themselves better, to try and go back up? I haven't seen that. They occasionally do some good things and then it falls off a little bit, and I thought they had a good coach, and then, you know, they decided to give it all to Darren Sammy. He might still end up being a fantastic coach, but at the moment there doesn't seem to be any real inspiration, whereas the thing that sort of galvanised the West Indies cricket for a couple of years there was the fact that they missed out on Champions trophies. They almost lost to Scotland for a World Cup. You know, all these sorts of things actually did start to do it. I don't see what the point of them just being there because they were there in... Why should you be playing at the top level of sport because you were good in 1928? Like, what does that tell us about our sport? It's such a silly way of doing it. And, you know, there's other alternatives here as well. There is franchise ODI cricket, which is a possibility as well, and I know that some billionaires have looked into doing that. So there are other options available out there, but yeah, one-day cricket is the one that makes the least amount of sense in the schedule that we have at the moment. If the broadcasters don't want it, and we don't watch it as much, and bilateral one-day cricket has almost died, why is it still the major World Cup? Is a very fair question.
Michael Atherton made a point years ago now, and he's often ahead of his time, but he said, how about we only play ODI cricket in the year of a World Cup? Yeah? I mean, it's quite onerous. I mean,
I think I wrote that in 2008 or 2009 as well, so I'm not surprised that, you know, that other people were coming up with that idea, because they're friendlies, right? They used to be series. When they were tri-series and quad series, and you and I both know that was because one-day cricket was killing at that stage. It was doing really, really well, and you could make money off a tri-series or a quad series. That's why they existed. The minute we went to bilaterals and those 7-match series that no one paid any attention to, and it would die by the end, and your friend would call you up and go, "You're going to the game tomorrow," and you're like, "Is there a game tomorrow?" Like, you didn't even know how many one-days they were. From that point forward, it only really makes sense to play them as friendlies, as Athers says, in the way into a tournament. The Champions Trophy, I've got many issues with the Champions Trophy, but if it's going to be played, why on earth would you make it a one-day tournament now?
Because there are already 2 T20 World Cups every 4 years. Which,
again, we have to get rid of one of those as well. That is one of the big issues. They should have a knockout tournament, Champions Trophy style. You've also got to fit the Olympics into all this, manners, because you know, cricket is pivoting towards the Olympics, however slowly. You know, really 150 over tournament every 4 years for the men and for the women is more than enough. And as you say, we play all the one days as we come into it if we want. But I just don't. I'd be very surprised if we continue to have the one-day World Cup for another 20 years run by the ICC.
Before we wrap this up, you are going to give me your blueprint for 2-division Test cricket, by the way. So think about it in the left side of your brain, and the right side of your brain, let's talk about the return of the Champions League.
Did you cover the first Champions League? That seems like the sort of thing Manners would turn up at.
We're talking about T20 Champions League, you remember? The one that was disbanded.
No one remembers.
So, again, the feedback from Singapore, the ICC AGM, was that, you know, okay, it's a great idea, let's bring it back. It's a really good concept. We got it wrong last time because we had, Colombo playing Auckland, and nobody was watching it, and nobody was interested. So now this was a proposition in order to bridge the gap left alone by bilateral, left by the basically the decline and ultimate disintegration of bilateral ODI cricket, right? So let's have the Champions League return with the champion. And so when they sat down to discuss it, the broadcasters, who obviously have an understandably strong voice in negotiations, said, right, okay, so it's Champions League, right? So the champions from all the countries. So they said, right, we'll have 5 Indian teams, 3 English teams, 2 Australian teams, and 1 from South Africa and 1 from somewhere else. That'll vary. Sri Lanka, maybe West Indies. I mean, the despair that was felt by most people around that table, like, you don't get it, guys. You don't. And they're going, yeah, we do. It needs to make money. It didn't. The last one didn't.
I mean, the problem with the last one was I still think it's one of the best tournaments we've ever come up with in cricket. The basic idea, which is finding the best domestic teams, flying them out and having them in a tournament. The problem was that T20 cricket didn't really exist at that stage, right? So you didn't have franchises. There were very few franchises. Cape Cobras might have been around. There weren't that. Whereas when it started, it was Victorian Bush Rangers and New South Wales Blues were playing. Otago Volts was still attached to all these different things. So no one followed these teams, right? They didn't even have any sort of backing. And then we didn't even know how much better the IPL was than anything else at that point. Remember, Trinidad won the first one, right? So you got this random team coming from nowhere. If you played it now, and let's say you had 16 teams, so they're thinking of having 12, aren't they? Yeah. If you had 16 teams, you're going to have probably 4 from the IPL, maybe 2 from England, 2 from Australia. But then you have the chance of having great upsets because a side like Trinidad or wherever come up and win. But the problem that you have now is the same owners own all these teams. So how are you going to filter your players? You're going to filter your players into your main sides, which are going to be the IPL teams. How is it going to be possible that other leagues are going to beat them? Which is when the Champions League started. New South Wales won one year, Trinidad won another year. The IPL teams weren't even dominating at that point. Whereas now, all the best players are going to be funneled back in. So it's still not a perfect system. But I honestly think it's a great idea for a tournament. I just don't know if cricket is set up for it. And then, we still have to get around the fact that Kieran Pollard 1 year, I think, qualified to play for 3 teams. Cameron White qualified to play for 4 teams. Dirk Nannes qualified for 3 teams. Well, we know which teams they're going to pick, Manners.
And also, so let's say they go with the 5 Indian teams, the 3 English teams, the 2 Australian teams, the 1 South African team, and 1 from. Maybe they throw an olive branch out to Major League Cricket, right? So you've got 12 teams. Well, 3 of them would be Mumbai Indians. You've got Mumbai Indians Cape Town, Mumbai Indians New York, and didn't the Mumbai Indians win the IPL this year?
So, no, they didn't. But
well, they'd be one of the 5.
Yeah, no, they'd certainly be one of the 5. Yeah. So, that is maybe the strength of this idea, though. Because that means that what you have is the most important people in cricket are no longer the people who run the ICC or even the BCCI. The most important people in cricket at the moment is the Ambani family, and they're the people that own all of those teams. They're also the team that owns Geo. They're also own a big share of Cricket Info. They also I won't even go through all the different things that they own. That to them, surely, if I'm the Ambani family, I'm like, this is a great tournament. We could be in it 5 times. Let's buy a Big Bash team. They own the Oval team, don't they?
Well, was it 49% or 51%? Yeah. Right.
They could get in it 5 times, right? Like, if I'm the Ambani family, I'm like, this could be the great thing. Was it the Le Mans when all the Ford cars went over the line at the same time? Can we do that? So there's an element from that point of view that if you can get the billionaires interested, maybe there is something to be found of this. And then I'm not a big fan of football, but one of the reasons the Champions League works sometimes is because you do get a team from nowhere sort of come up in the champion. Maybe you only need one of those teams every couple of years to keep the general interest of this tournament going. But when it came up the first time, there were no T20 fans because there was no T20 cricket. That is very different now. There is a whole generation of people who do have an interest in T20 leagues all around the world. And so if it's going to work, it should work now. But let's not pretend it's going to be anything like the football version, because, as you said, half the teams could come from one ownership group.
You ready for your blueprint for 2-division Test cricket now?
Is this the one that I want to do, or the one that they will actually do?
Well, actually, you have mentioned the one that you like, and yours is a 3-division system. So that would involve conferring Test status on a whole bunch of
any cricket team in the world who wants to play Test cricket, and they have whites, and they're a national side, should be allowed
fund themselves.
Should be allowed to play Test cricket. I don't understand why Uganda can't play a Test match tomorrow. Our sport is so stupid. Right? They can play a T20 tomorrow, but they can't play a Test match because we came up with rules in 1910. All
right, tell you what then. Give us the Jarrod Kimber version, and then I'll say what I think Sanjog Gupta's version will be. Compromise.
So you would essentially, I think you would do it from a point of view of the bottom 2 teams have to play off for the spot. So it would be 6 plays 7. Whoever wins out of 6 plays 7 stays in Division 1. And then 7 plays the winner of the playoff game from Division 2. And the same thing, you would do the same thing in Division 3 as well. Does that make sense? So there's 2 games. How much fun would these games be? Like every Test man in the world is going to be following this game. So you've got you play off for the chance to not go into the playoff round, and then you have to go up against the winner of the division below. Simple as that. I don't think India, England, or Australia ever have to worry about. They might end up in the 6 versus 7 game. I don't think it's very likely that they're going to be the team that goes up. And that also gives those teams 2 chances to stay in Division 1. If you win both of those games, if you win the first game and win the second game, you still don't go into Division 2. So we might not have that much changing between Division 1 and Division 2. That's the way I would do it, because that, I think, protects the teams. And also, it says to Division 2, you have to be good enough to beat a team from Division 1 to get there. You don't just have to be the best team in Division 2. So I would change it from the sort of more traditional version of how football leagues do it.
So the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia decided that they wanted to play Test cricket. They don't need to have Test status conferred on them by the ICC. They can just say, right, we're playing Test cricket.
Yep. So they would play. So
how do they get into Division 3?
So they would play in their local divisions, and then there would be a tournament every 2 to 4 years where people who top their local divisions would play the bottom teams from Division 3. I'd have it a little bit more fluid in Division 2 and Division 3. So if, whoever the team who is ranked 23rd would play the team who is ranked 20th, and it would be a straight knockout. Right, you don't get a second chance if you're not in Division 1. Division 1's the only one where you get a second chance. And I'm largely putting that there for 2 reasons. One, so that England, India and Australia will agree to the system, but also because I think if you want to get to the top level, you have to prove that you can beat a team from the top level. Whereas between Division 3 and, let's say, my open division, I don't think that's as much of an issue.
Okay, I think that what will happen is there'll be 7 teams in what is effectively they would call it Division 1, but it'll be Test cricket being reduced to 7 teams effectively, because there'll be a Division 2, and I don't think that Test cricket will survive, and I don't think there's an appetite amongst the top 7 for Test cricket to survive in a Division 2. And I think that that'll be the end of it in the Caribbean.
You don't think there'll be any promotion or relegation from those 5 teams?
I can't see how that'll happen.
So then we're still creating the same terrible system. All we're really doing is changing it from 12 teams to 7.
What we're doing is making the income generation more efficient for India, England and Australia.
But if you were going to do... So essentially why you want the 3 divisions, one of the reasons is you have then 3 different packages to sell to broadcasters around the world. You take that money and you sell it as an overall package the way that the World Cup is sold, and then...
You mean bundling?
Yep, because you make more money from bundling. One of the reasons Test cricket doesn't make as much money as it should, Manners, is because it is sold individually, right? They are being completely ripped up. We know that Test cricket is worth more than it is currently sold for. TV executives have told me this over and over again. You know, sometimes series don't even get sold for any money, right? They get given away at the last minute.
The sport is... advertisers have told me that the chief executive of New Balance, I think, said that cricket offers the most efficient advertising sporting platform in sport.
I mean, it's ridiculous how much more money we could get out of it. But if you want to buy the Ashes, right, then you have to buy all the package. If you want the Ashes, you need to buy every single part of the package. Then the money that goes from that big package goes towards paying the players, the umpires, and the grounds. Then we can continue to play. If we just go with 7 teams in Division 1 without promotion and relegation, all we are really doing is changing it from 12 test nations to 7 test nations and then pretending we're not doing it. That is all we are doing.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what I think they're going to do. By the way, other sporting goods manufacturers are available. Apologies to Nike and Adidas, the rest.
Puma, Miller Champion Hall. But, you know, so if you... I went, this is a bit random with that one. But if we do that, what happens when the 6th and 7th teams get bad? Right?
I don't think they care.
No, you don't care, but my point is...
I care very much.
Well, sorry,
I don't think...
they care. But my point is then, that actually is going to drag down the overall product, right? And so I don't think they're looking ahead to understand what they are actually signing themselves up for. They would actually be better off just saying, we don't play test cricket. Everyone can play as much test cricket as you want. We're going to play 10 tests a year. We're going to play 5 against England. We're going to play 5 against India, and that's our Australian test. And then England does the same, and India does the same. They don't need to be involved in any of this because the ICC doesn't run test cricket. So why would you actually agree to a system which is going to end up with who's going to be the 7th team as we currently sit here? Who's the 7th team at the moment? Bangladesh or Sri Lanka?
Yeah.
What's the benefit of even having that? If that is what they are saying behind the scenes, why not just do it and just go, we don't need any of this anymore? And I tell you what, in 4 years' time, Bangladesh, you've got some freak spinner or some fast bowler that we've never seen before, we love. We think we can market him. You can come out and play.
See, I mean, Sri Lanka's got more test venues per capita than any other country in the world. And Bangladesh,
some of them are not falling apart.
Yes, and Bangladesh has got a population of 180 million. They care greatly about all formats of the game. They're not just T20 followers. And my Sanjog Gupta said he told do you remember when what used to be FICA, now the World Players Association survey? He sat on the committee that formed. So, you know, he does care, but he said he said during one of those meetings that today's audience, T20 audience, were 10 years old when they first started watching cricket. And what did they watch? T20 cricket. And so he said that his implication was that the Test cricket's audience is getting older and older and less relevant.
But it's not, because we lived through the 2000s when the same thing was said about one-day cricket, and Test cricket is much more robust and successful than one-day cricket is right now. Right? It's way more robust than one-day cricket, which we just said might be the BlackBerry of cricket, right? So there's 2 things to remember. One is that what T20 cricket is still a gateway to longer form cricket. Why would you give up something that makes you money? And at the moment, Test cricket can still make them money. The system that they're coming up with, I don't think will make them as much money as they think, and I don't think it will go ahead. We haven't even talked about franchise Test cricket, which is probably what will happen with either one-day cricket or Test cricket if it gets shut down the way that they're trying to shut it down.
I think you might just have signed us up for another lunch session. John Norman is coming in to commentate now. Let's go and get some chicken and rice. I think that's what's on the menu.